Check out the latest highlights from the Nourishing You podcast.
So I'd really like to hear from a cardiologist perspective, why you find that gluten is not healthy for people. Diana and I have our ideas and our training around this and our opinions, which match yours definitely. But I think it would be good for our audience to hear from you, from your perspective. What do you see related to that?
Well, I think ultimately, we're looking at, the common sense. And again, common sense, our ancestors ate certain foods and gluten was not one of them. We did not have wheat, barley, and rye. And certainly not in the amounts that we're having today. And of course, all the, GMOs and glyphosate and all the other pesticides on there. But when it comes to gluten, again, gluten is one of those things that leads to leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability. And that is well documented by PhD researchers. It's in the medical literature. It unfortunately hasn't been studied as much as many other things, including statin drugs. But what happens is that the gluten molecule itself, other undigested foods, unhealthy things, again, like the GMOs, like, other foods, maybe soy and stuff like that should not be in our diet. It causes irritation to the gastrointestinal lining, leading to leaky gut. Things get into the body that don't belong. Now, there's other things that lead to leaky gut as well. Of course, the pesticides, phthalates, parabens, VOCs, mold mycotoxins, other environmental toxins. These all lead to that hyper permeable intestinal wall. So now you get this coming into the body, the wall is leaky, these proteins get into the body, molecules get into the body, the immune system recognizes them as a foreign invader, and now the immune system starts to attack. That immune system activation leads to inflammation, oxidative stress, and ultimately leaky gut leads to leaky heart, for example, because the lining of the blood vessels is called the endothelium. And when you have the leaky gut, you eventually will develop the leaky heart and the leaky endothelium. So now the endothelial cells start to spread apart, and now you get these oxidized LDL particles, you get these macrophages, coming in. Now you start to set up coronary plaque, and eventually that ruptures. And that is the process of gluten. And then again, as you check people's antibodies, of course, over the last 2 years, everybody's an immunology expert. Everybody's an expert on COVID antibodies. Well, if the human body is making a lot of antibodies to gluten, is actually an umbrella term, and there's a lot of different protein parts of the gluten that actually can be attacked. And these are broken down into gliadins and glutenins. And as we test all those things, we find a lot of immunoreactivity. And essentially, so many people get better by avoiding gluten. It's funny because I get, some patients who come in like, oh, I don't have a problem with gluten, because some people, again, they notice they don't feel well, they gain weight, they got skin issues, and they attach it to gluten. But what about the guy who comes into my office? He's 52 years old. He's, and he's had a heart attack, and he's like, I don't have a problem with gluten. And I said, what if the gluten led to your heart attack? And then now it's an epiphany moment for that person. And, again, there's just no benefit to eating it. So why eat it?
If you enjoyed this short episode, check out our full library on our NAMP YouTube channel, where you can catch up or learn more. Keep in mind that the information on the NAMP podcast is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical or legal advice. The NAMP is not liable or responsible for any harm, damage, or illness arising from the use of the information contained herein. By listening to the information on this podcast, you agree to defend, indemnify, and hold harmless the NAMP and all agents. Copyright NAMP, all rights reserved.